Color guard, hold. Left, face, present, colors. Left, right, left. Mark time.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott W. Palmer. I am professor and chair of the Department of History here at the University of Texas at Arlington. On behalf of our faculty and staff, I'd like to welcome all of you, members of the audience, representatives from the National Medal of Honor Foundation, and our many distinguished guests, including Britt Slabinski, to this very special event. Over the past few years, the Department of History has worked hard to expand educational, curricular, and programmatic opportunities to students on campus and to the community at large. We are particularly proud of our efforts focusing on the history of the armed forces and military conflicts and cultures. We have introduced new internship opportunities for undergraduate and graduate students at locations including the Fort Worth Military History Museum and the Dallas Holocaust and Genocide Museum. We oversee and direct the MAV Vets Voices History Project, which is dedicated to recording and preserving the personal stories of UTA alums who have served in the armed forces. And we have also significantly expanded our course coverage of eras and events of relevance to many of you here through our recently established minor in military history. Many of these efforts have been led by my friend and colleague, Dr. James Sandy, whom I would like to recognize in helping to organize this event along with me and our staff. Thank you, Dr. Sandy. We like to say that UTA is the place where history is made, and we look forward to the opportunity of making history in the future with our partners at the National Medal of Honor Museum Foundation. We are particularly excited to revisit how tonight's featured speaker himself made history 2 decades ago during the Battle of Takur Ghar. Before we join him and Chris Cassidy, President and CEO of the National Medal of Honor Museum Foundation, please join me in welcoming the former mayor of Arlington, Jeff Williams, who led the effort to bring the museum home to Arlington. Mayor Williams will say a few things about our event proper, and also a few words about our new upcoming National Medal of Honor Museum. Mayor Williams.
Well, thank you, Dr. Palmer, and thank you to you and Dr. Sandy and the University of Texas at Arlington History Department for bringing it in here. And then, isn't this a beautiful building? Oh my goodness. Well, this is quite a place that we have here, but however, we are about to be home to the National Medal of Honor Museum right here in Arlington, Texas. Is that not exciting? My goodness. And so many ask, is it really going to happen? Well, look right here on this screen. We had the groundbreaking just a few weeks ago in which we saw former President Bush come in and speak to us. Then we had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley. And then we had the most decorated living veteran, General Brady, who is also a Medal of Honor recipient, speak. And if that wasn't enough, we then had the Naval Cadets sing, we had the Air Force band there, and then the Marines did an incredible job there of entertaining us with a Cracker Jack rifle routine that they went through. Y'all, this was America's event, and it brought to fruition a lot of work and effort. And in fact, our Medal of Honor recipients have been working for years to be able to have a museum. And you may be asking yourself, where is this museum moving from? It has never been built. And it's a shame that that hasn't happened, and now it is going to. And our Medal of Honor recipients deserve that because they are traveling all over the country to champion the values of character, integrity, sacrifice, citizenship, patriotism. And they have pledged that they will give back more after they've received the medal than they did before, and they are proving that. Well, let me share with you a little bit about this outstanding design that you see. We have an incredible design. This is going to be located immediately north of the ballpark in Arlington that's now called Choctaw Stadium, beside the East Sports Stadium. But you can see very purposefully it is across the lake in a much more passive and reflective area that we have in a beautiful spot. But also it will be right in the view of the TV cameras when the sports comes on at either Cowboys Stadium or over at the baseball stadium, either one. And of course, an opportunity to remind America about where the real heroes come from there in this museum. Well, the design itself will have an extraordinary exhibit area, 31,000 square feet up in the rectangular area on top. And then it is supported by 5 pillars that are symbolic of the 5 branches of the military. And of course, that also is symbolic of a great burden that they carry into battle. You can see that heavy steel rectangle or square up at the top. Well, it symbolizes the burden that they carry of fighting for our freedom and protecting their fellow soldiers and us back here at home. An amazing design, and I can't wait for it to happen. There will be incredible interactive exhibits in it, but also a lot of extraordinary artifacts that have been collected. In fact, our staff has been working hard on being able to bring a lot of different aspects of the artifacts there. Now, you saw that we had the groundbreaking. That was not symbolic groundbreaking. There actually are dirt being moved, and they're preparing the foundation now. We are going to be opening in fall of 2024. Did y'all hear that? Fall of 2024, we are actually going to be having this dream of a museum is going to become a reality. A reality, too, that brings it back down to us, because we have a great responsibility here to help and support this museum, because this is going to be a beacon for freedom, a beacon for being able to champion those great values that all Americans need. But this won't just be a museum that Americans visit. We will have international visitors that will come here to see what has been happening here throughout the decades, and actually with our Medal of Honor recipients. It started way back in the Civil War and now has moved forward. Well, exciting days are ahead, but let me share with you probably the most exciting thing about this museum. The 66 living Medal of Honor recipients will all be helping to tell this story. And then in addition to that, we will be bringing in our school children to be able to hear these stories. They already go out into the schools. And then we are also working on an education curriculum that we hope will be studied here in the schools, not only in Texas, but throughout the country. Then they'll have an opportunity to take a field trip to see this themselves. And then it's not just the school children, we'll be going out to adults too, to be able to have seminars and conferences there to be able to learn these stories and to create a foundation in your personal life, your business life, and then throughout different organizations of championing those values. Do you remember those values? Character, integrity, sacrifice, courage, citizenship, and patriotism. Y'all, those are all values that we all want and we all need, and we need that to be getting out. So this is going to be quite a teaching facility, and then if that's not enough, we have the vision that this will be a place that will be nonpartisan, to where world leaders can come and discuss major issues that they have and be able to come together and develop processes and ability to be able to come together and solve the world's problems. Isn't that a phenomenal thing there that will be happening right here in Arlington, Texas? And the reason, because I always get asked, why is it here in Arlington? Well, General Brady said it's here because this is the heartland of America, because of the spirit of the people, the patriotism that we exhibit, and the ability for everyone to be able to come here, being in the center of the country. So very exciting to see that happen. Now, this is where it really gets exciting for you tonight, because we have two men that are extraordinary here. They have done extraordinary things, and they will tell you that they are ordinary people that had the opportunity to do extraordinary things, and they are very humble. But however, I don't have to be humble here in introducing them, because they truly have done extraordinary things. And I'm going to start with the president and CEO of the National Medal of Honor Museum, Chris Cassidy. He's here on the right. Y'all, he is a Navy SEAL and an astronaut, and he is one of only 3 men in our nation's history who have achieved both of those. And then I know you're wondering, did he really go into battle as a Navy SEAL? Yes, he did, and he's going to talk about that tonight. And then also, did he really go up into space, or did he just go through the test and routine and study? Well, he was in space 377 days, y'all. That's a long time, and he's been on several missions there with it. And also, he is the star of Disney's documentary, Walk Among the Stars. Now, he's going to turn red there, but it's really an opportunity. He is also a very humble man here who is really trying to help tell the story. And Chris Cassidy could be anywhere, and definitely when he retired from NASA, corporate America wanted him. But he chose to be coming here to make a difference because he believes this museum will help to change America. Now, the man that is actually achieved the Medal of Honor status, actually, this is the 20-year anniversary of Britt Slabinski's mission that he had in Afghanistan. And y'all, it's a compelling story, and you're going to be able to hear that story today. And what is so cool about it, too, is that Chris Cassidy was only, 3 miles away, a couple of mountains away, waiting to be going in to help. And so he is listening to it on the radio, hoping they're going to call him on in to help Britt Slabinski and his team of Navy SEALs. And so he's going to have a perspective to be able to share there what was going on in his side of it as he interviews Britt and talks to him about the circumstances here, because you have 2 Navy SEALs right here that were there in the same place. They're working and almost worked together on this deal. But let me get into Britt Slabinski. Britt Slabinski came to Arlington, Texas as part of the selection committee here about where to go. He was part of the selection committee for the museum. And he spoke at a reception, in fact, the first reception we had here in Arlington when they were trying to figure out what city to go to. And after those of us heard him speak, everyone in the room said, "We want this museum here in Arlington." Because the story that Britt has and his yearning and the rest of the recipients' yearning for trying to make a difference here in our country just compelled us. And we also thought this is where it ought to be. And so you saw some really, some great leaders, not only here in Arlington, but throughout the Metroplex and then throughout Texas, that all came together to work to try to bring this here. And then, of course, also, Britt and his wife, Christina, travel all over the country here, championing veterans values or veterans affairs, and then also championing these values of the Medal of Honor. Now, I want to set this up well, so I'm going to move over here, and I want to read to you this bio here of Britt, because it's very important for you to have these facts so that you can get the most out of this conversation. Well, Britt was born on December 1st, 1969 in Northampton, Massachusetts. And then he was dedicated to public service from a young age. And he became an Eagle Scout when he was 14 years old. And I am speaking at the Eagle Scout banquet this Saturday, and you can bet I'm going to be telling Britt's story. There's no question there. It's amazing how many of the great Americans were Eagle Scouts. Well, he graduated in 1988 from Smith Vocational and Agricultural High School. He enlisted in the U.S. Navy and went through boot camp in Orlando, Florida. Britt had always wanted to be a Navy SEAL, and this is pretty common. Many of the Navy SEALs decided on that career very early on in age, and it's been interesting to see. And they also are the most committed and dedicated people you will ever meet. So he succeeded in the arduous process for qualification and acceptance into the basic underwater demolition SEAL training called BUDS at Naval Amphibious Base in Coronado, California. He graduated as a member of BUDS Class 164 in 1990. From 1990 to 1993, Slabinski was a member of SEAL Team 4. He then served with the Naval Special Warfare Development Group until 2006. It was during this assignment that Senior Chief Slabinski would perform the acts of valor that would earn him the Navy Cross, to be upgraded to the Medal of Honor during the Battle of Takar Gar, Roberts Ridge. Slabinski would remain deployed in combat for many days to come after his action, demonstrating the same selfless commitment to duty and welfare of his teammates that he had shown on March the 4th. In 2006, he became Command Master Chief of Naval Special Warfare Tactical Development and Evaluation Squadron 2, continuing to 2008. From then until 2010, he served as the Senior Enlisted Advisor of the Joint Special Operations Command in Washington, D.C. And from then until 2012, he was Commander Master Chief, Naval Special Warfare Group 2. In all, Slabinski served in 15 combat deployments before his retirement in June of 2014, a director of the Naval Special Warfare Safety Assistance and Analysis Program. And he was awarded the Medal of Honor from President Donald Trump at the White House on May the 24th, 2018. Slabinski lives with his wife, including a son who is also an Eagle Scout, in California, where he serves as a corporate consultant. And he is a member of the board of directors of the National Medal of Honor Museum Foundation. Let us give a warm welcome to these two great men, and let's hear from them.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Williams, and wonderful to be here tonight with everybody. This is a really exciting night for us because this marks the first of a series of programs. As the mayor mentioned, we'll have a museum which will include a leadership institute, both of which will have programs for all ages of people. But we recently realized we did not need to have the museum built or a physical building to start that program, those programs off. So with the help of our sponsors, Alicia and Miles Freeman, the owners of Wiley X, they are underwriting this series of seminars that will continue on as we bring recipients like Britt to share their story in not only this community, but around the world, around the nation. So thank you very much, you guys. We appreciate you. Yeah. Well, before we get going in the conversation, one other bit of housekeeping. Before you, there are some QR codes, which if you click on it, you donate $15,000 to the museum. So, no, I'm just kidding. That will send us your question, and at the end of our conversation, we'll have those questions. So don't be shy. Click on those QR codes and send us what your thoughts are. So, Britt, great to be with you. And as a fellow high school graduate class of 1988, I can tell you that it was not common in that year to know about the SEALs. Now everybody knows about the SEAL teams. But that was different for you with a family member there. Tell us about that.
It was. So, hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. If I could, just a quick show of hands, anyone that served? Anyone in the military? Gonna serve? Yeah, we had a good turnout. Hey. Yep, thank you for that. Yeah, my dad was in the Navy. I actually happened to be in the SEAL teams. He was UDT class 13, which was early, I think 1953.
Did he talk about it a lot when you were growing up?
So I kind of grew up in a museum. So my dad, like all good SEALs, he
kept everything.
He kept all this stuff, right? So you can imagine little, like 6-year-old me walking out of my bedroom, 2 o'clock in the morning, stumbling, trying to find the facilities, and you walk into a mannequin like that over there with all my dad's stuff on it, right? Being, talk about the creature from the Dark Lagoon. That was our house. But I don't think he forced it on me, but he really, probably when I was about 13 years old, so he took me down to one of our reunions, and I saw the demonstration and the interaction that he had with his teammates. And I thought, wow, it's like I've never met these men, but my dad's acting like their family. And I thought that was really interesting. And then, of course, all the cool stuff that SEALs do, right? Jumping out of planes, blowing stuff up, and otherwise going and making it right. Yeah. It was pretty interesting, too.
So the spark was around that 13-year time frame?
Yep. Yeah, right around there. Right? It was about the time I was earning my Eagle Scout in 2014, which...
There
love
you
that
are.
picture, right? But you can see, yeah, that's my dad right there, and you can see, yeah, I'd probably be ready to get out of the house too, right? I got to a cranky dad.
But Eagle Scout is an impressive feat, and your son did that as well. Talk about the feelings of pride you had when you saw him as ceremony.
Yeah, certainly. As anyone would have. He was, he did it on his own accord. Course.
You didn't get all his badges for him?
No. But it was great. Really proud of him to do that, and because I just believed in the ideals that it was preaching.
Yeah.
Right? And it just absolutely was important to me, and it became important to him, and yeah, it's very
Later on in our conversation, we'll talk about the motto that you learned then that was so critical to your actions. Why don't you tell us? Recite the Eagle Scout motto.
Any Eagle Scouts in the room? Any Eagle Scouts in here? Anybody want to volunteer to say what's the Boy Scout oath? I'll call you out right now. Boy Scout oath, what is it? No, that's the motto. Boy Scout oath. On my honor, I'll do my best to do my duty. That's how it starts with, right? So, yeah, we'll talk about how the things that you learn from an early age, which really is why the museum is going to be so important as well, too. You never know what you've learned from your mentors and people before you. What's going to make a difference, right?
Yeah, fantastic. I couldn't agree more. So
How about you, going to Buds? How'd you get in the Navy?
For me, it was good job deflecting the attention. I knew you'd do it. But for me, it was, I was always excited watching the Army-Navy football game and proud to see those men and women on both uniforms marching onto the field. So that I got excited about the Naval Academy, and off I went. Yeah. So you go to boot camp and you make it through. Did you go directly from boot camp with a little bit of schooling, you know, whatever your A school was, and then to Buds?
Yep, yeah, that was it. I was getting ready to graduate high school, and I got into the University of Massachusetts, which was just down the road, and I wasn't feeling it at the time. I said, I'm just going to go down to the Navy recruiter, and I said, SEAL team sounds like a good thing. So I walked in the recruiter's office, and the failure rate of SEAL training is 80%. And when you don't make it through SEAL training, you're in the Navy, right? You got to fulfill your commitment to the Navy. So the SEALs, I don't know how many of you know this, the SEALs is actually the #2 recruiting tool of the United States Navy. So that's probably why they really keep us around. But yeah, and I walked in and I said, yep, sign me up. Went through training down in Orlando, which they don't have anymore. Went to Raidham in A school, and then right into Buds.
And right into Buds. There's you, that looks like the Hell Week face right there, post-Hell Week face.
Yeah, that's right after Hell Week.
Yeah.
So just got secured. You can see my lips split open, but that's just a week of getting my ass kicked.
You're still not sure if the photographer's about to make you drop or not.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But that's what we all looked like.
That's what we all looked like, sure enough. Do you remember a certain moment in Hell Week where you had a reflective moment, like, what am I doing? Or were you laser focused the whole entire time?
No, I think everyone has that moment, right? Because otherwise it's not doing its job. Because at the end of the day, what's it really testing? It's not testing your physical ability, but your mental ability. So I think we all have that. I think for me, maybe somewhere, maybe late Tuesday night, Wednesday, right before you hit autopilot, right, was that moment. It was like, you know, you're aching and your joints ache and you're bruised and battered and bleeding from places, and you're like, yeah, really? Is this really what I want to do? So you have those moments of doubts, right? Like all of us do.
Yeah, mine was Wednesday night, eating a cold MRE, watching with my feet in the water, watching the sun go down, thinking, oh my God, this has been forever and it's only halfway.
Only halfway.
Yeah.
Yep, more to come.
Yeah, the best advice I ever got was just make it till the next meal, because they got to let you eat, right? So, and I apply that in life, you know, just make it to the next meal.
Yeah, just hold on, one more meal. And
one more meal and you're there.
I remember my best meal was, it was probably, not the best meal, most memorable meal, was I think it was a lunch when they brought up the pasta, right, with a lot of carbs and bread, and they dumped it in the sand, and then we all had to come over and scoop it up out of the sand.
Scoop it out of the sand?
Did they do that for you?
We did not have that treat.
I don't know if it was an accident or not, but we ate it.
Yeah. Yeah, by that point, the sand, you just don't even pay attention to it anymore.
It didn't matter.
It's every
calories.
every place you can think of, yeah. So you graduated Buds, and for those of you in the room, there's SEAL teams on the East Coast and the West Coast, so did you select SEAL Team 4? Did you want to go to the East Coast, or wherever you went, it didn't matter?
Yeah, I was trying to guide it towards the East Coast.
East Coast.
You know, my family was on the East Coast, and my father was in UDT 21, which turned into SEAL Team 4. So I thought, well, that would be kind of neat. So I put down SEAL Team 4 as my selection and see if I'd get it. At the end of the day, I just want to go serve, right? But I got orders to SEAL Team 4. And I was like, hey, this is great.
And so you were there for 3 years or so, and describe to the folks what's the process to get to what some folks know as SEAL Team 6, what we know as Naval Special Warfare Development Group. Yeah.
What are we talking about?
What are we talking about? Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist, yeah.
So I did 2 deployments at SEAL Team 4. Went down to Central and South America, and which was great, doing what we call foreign internal defense and training all the locals. It was counter-drug stuff, what we were trying to do. And then just thought, hey, I wanted to go try out for the next level, right? And the way selection goes, it's almost as hard to get into that unit as it is to get the Buds. So you got to go through another whole selection process, even though you've been a SEAL for 3 to 4 years. You got to go prove yourself all over.
Another 6 months, right?
Yeah, for another 6 months. So you go through an interview process and 6 months of just proving yourself all over again. Again, not looking for anything else other than how your gray matter works. Probably a lot like going through astronaut training, right? They just want to see how you're going to work under pressure.
The difference there is once you get selected as an astronaut, they don't want you to leave. When you go into Green Team, the instructors definitely want you to leave that whole 6
Yeah,
months, right?
They want you to leave.
Yeah, they want you to leave.
They're trying, yeah.
So you make it to Green Team now, you're a member of that unit, and so that was like 93, 94. It was another 7 years-ish until September 11th, 2001,
It was,
6, 7 years, if I got doing the math right.
Yep.
Did you ever think about leaving the Navy prior to that, or you, at that point where you were in for a whole career?
No, at that point, it crosses my mind, you know, that, hey, maybe I should get out and go try to do something else But with those of you that have served in here, right, and you know also well, is that the people that are around you, it's really what you're doing the job for. It really comes at the end of the day, you like going to work because the quality of the individual that you're going to be with every day, I mean, there's none better, absolutely none better. So why would I want to leave that? So I ended up staying. And then we went and did some work after the Bosnia Wars, going to trying to hold people accountable for what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, one day I'm working out in our gym, and in comes running our petty officer, our first class petty officer. And he goes, "You guys got to turn the TV on." So he turns off the heavy metal music, right? Turns the heavy metal music off, TV on, and then there's the tower smoking. And then that's how we found out that we were under attack.
Was your squadron scheduled to deploy any time around there, or did that accelerate your deployment schedule?
Yeah, I think it changed pretty much everything.
Everything,
Everything for all of us changed because, we're all like, okay, where are we going? What are we doing? And we all had an idea, of course, right?
Yeah.
We all had an idea where we were going to go. But yeah, I mean, you were active then too?
Yeah, I was at SEAL Team 3 on the West Coast, and our platoon, you're together as a SEAL platoon, not at his unit where he's talking about, other SEAL teams, you're together for about 2 years, and the final 6 months of those 2 years is overseas deployment. And I was in a platoon that was getting ready to deploy Thanksgiving of 2001. So we were all trained and prepared. So as soon as that happened, I went to work that morning knowing that we were going somewhere. But just like you, not really sure where it was going to sort out. Where did you fly to first?
So we deployed January 6, 2002. Flew from Virginia Beach to Masira, Oman. Right away, I got off the big airplane, got another MC-130, flew into Afghanistan, Kandahar. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and then got on another smaller plane. It was just me. I was in the reconnaissance element, the sniper team. So it was me and my team. Got on a smaller plane, and they said, "Hey, you're going to go fly to this little town called Anaconda, and you're going to go look for the leader of the Taliban, right?" And just me, and it was like 7 of us. And so we get on this little plane, we go fly out in the desert. The plane makes just a landing out on any open patch of road. Ramp goes down, kicks us out, and I remember standing there. It was probably 4 o'clock in the morning about this point, not knowing at all where I'm at, and just watching the plane take off, and it gets dead silent, and I was like, "What in the hell are we doing here? I'm supposed to do what?" Okay, and that's how the war started for us.
So I normally I'd be offended that you didn't stop and say hi to me that time when you're in Kandahar, because I was there.
Yeah.
I was, we were in a tent much like this with Captain Harwood was my boss, and I think we got there the very end of October.
That's just crazy. We were in such.
We were so close to each other this whole time. And our platoon was doing operations in and around the area that we're about to talk about. But we were based out of Kandahar the whole time, which grew to be a little more comfortable than I think that what you're describing there at Tarrant Cow.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, if you've ever been to an Air Force chow hall, you know that we were eating Air Force chow. He was not eating Air Force chow.
Yeah, it was pretty much MREs, 3 months.
MREs, yeah. So, Operation Anaconda, it was in March, and here's a nice map. Kind of see Kandahar a little
Everybody
bit.
understand that?
Big circles and lines and things, but you were based out of Gardez at this time, or you forward deployed to Gardez?
For the mission I was, but I was in Bagram, which was just north of the capital, with the rest of the task force, because we only half of our force was involved in the mission. And then they called us, 24 hours into Anaconda and said, hey, things aren't going as we had planned. We want you to go to this mountain. So, my orders came really pretty quick. Morning of the 3rd, they woke me up and said,
You had some guys that were already in the field,
yeah, I had
right?
half my team was already
Half your
involved.
team was already-
And the rest of us were on alert with the helicopters, waiting to see if anything left the area, left Anaconda. And we thought, if it was someone leaving, it might have been bin Laden or anyone in his team. So we were waiting for that, thinking, the activity in that region there, it's just going to drive something out, and that's what we'll go and follow.
And Anaconda, for those in the room, was a giant operation, not just with a group of SEALs, right, Britt? It was Army battalions, several battalions,
Yeah.
brigade even, I think.
It was at the time, I think, and still is, the highest elevation that the U.S. Army has conducted combat operations at, which I think the valley floor there is somewhere around 8 to 9,000 feet, somewhere in there. But you had, this huge combat brigade, 101st and some 10th Mountain Division in there. Is being part of it there was just too many on the ground that our forces could deal with.
Right.
So we needed the conventional forces there.
So
What was your role for where were you?
So there was a lot of planning going into Operation Anaconda because it involved so many units, and it was scheduled to be over a couple weeks, if I recall. So we flew from Kandahar to Bagram. We were probably eating in the same chow hall there for a while, and then during the operation, our platoon was on standby as the QRF for all of the operations for the Army folks.
Yeah, okay.
And within your task force, you had a separate designated QRF that was the Ranger Force,
Rangers.
and we'll talk about that in a second. So you get the call, Britt, helicopter's coming to pick up your element.
Yep.
And then what happened? How much intel did you know at that moment when you were not in the field?
Yeah, it was all coming pretty quick. We were following the battle, and we knew it wasn't quite going to plan. So I get the orders, hey, just go down the Gardez. We saw some tents there of it, was the camp we were flying to. Just go down there, you're gonna go up, put an observation post on top of this mountain. And we had been doing that ever since we've been in country, going all over the country looking for leads. And really, in some ways, it was like nothing new. So we get on the helicopter early morning and fly on down. We get down there, and my mission is, hey, you're going to go on top of this tall mountain, right? And put an observation post there. And of course, we're looking at that, so it's not too far of a leap of logic to know, like, hey, if that tall mountain's important to you and me, who else is it going to be important to, right?
To the bad guys.
Yeah, to the bad guys. So I was like, so I'm getting orders to go to the top of the mountain, and I was like, yeah, I really don't want to do it that way, right? I mean, that's one thing SEALs are known for, is being rebellions, right? I was like, no, I'm not going to follow your stupid orders, right? It's okay to laugh at some of that stuff too, by the way. So I was like, well, how about this? Since it's our job to get the mission done with the least amount of risk to our force, I was like, I'll take 2 days to get there. I'm going to land at this other spot where I know for sure is safe. I'm going to land here and observe the mountain for a day, confirm that there is or is not enemy activity there, and deal with it appropriately, and then occupy the following day, again on my terms and not on someone else's terms. That was the plan. And it didn't quite work out that way.
And so you're flying in. How long? And you're taking this flight, and at some point the crew chief or you get over the headset, we're a minute out, 3 minutes out, 1 minute out, 30 seconds, and at that point, people inside start to shuffle around, adjust your gear, right? Is that when the helicopter went crazy and all you're looking around trying to figure out what's going on?
Yeah, it's quite the condensed version.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we get down there and a series of mechanical failures, my timeline gets gets pushed further and further into the night. So what that means is, for us as ground force commanders, I can't get done tonight on the timeline you're asking me to do. It's like, how many times have you had your rocket launches pushed, right? I mean, how many times have you ever been sitting on the pad and they say, oh, you're all ready to go, and then they say, oh, nope, you're out of the window.
The answer is 6.
6 times, right? So 6 times you've been ready to go, all ready, and then they say, nope, you're not going. Well, it's the same thing that happened this night. It's like, well, all these things happen, push the window. So I get on the radio and I talk to my commanders and I say, look, I can't do what you're asking me to get done tonight. I need to do it tomorrow. And they come back to me and they tell me, yeah, you must be in position by the time the sun comes up. Not only to your original offset location, not on the top of the mountain, right? But to actually go to the top of the mountain. So my orders had completely changed. So now, I got to talk to our flight lead. And I said, did you hear that correctly? He's like, yeah, they want us to the top of the mountain. I was like, well, yeah, why? All right, so we went. And immediately, again, you can see the risk profile now to the forces going up, that, yeah, we really don't want to go there, but to be good leaders, sometimes you have to be a what? You got to be a good follower sometimes, right? So it's like, yep, yeah, I'm going, don't want to go, but I'm going to go. And we went. And so as we were making the approach up to the mountain, it's that right there. You can look at it. Does it not look like a school bus flying through the air? It totally does, right? And that's about what it is. Take a school bus, paint it green. It's about like a school bus on the inside, right? But a bunch of juveniles on the inside.
A bunch of juveniles on the inside.
Making fun of each other.
Yep, it's exactly right. It's a good description.
Yeah, we get in there and we're nudging each other like, hey, you're in my seat, get out of my seat. It's totally juvenile inside the thing, for those of you who inside. But we're going into the mountain, and as we're making the approach to it, the pilot, and we land and the ramp goes down. Immediately to my right is Neil Roberts. And the pilot says, hey, I got a Dishka off the nose of the aircraft. Now, we had a gunship look at the top of the mountain before we went and reported no activity up there.
Oh, the gunship reported no activity?
Yeah, the gunship came over and said reported no activity.
Oh, wow.
Right? So they have a gunship is, basically, it's a C-130 with a bunch of guns on it, hence the name, right? And they have these really sensitive sensors that can sense all the heat. Well, they came back and said, there's nothing up there. Well, okay, doesn't really makes a lot of sense, but come to find out later, they actually looked at the wrong mountaintop. Is what we come to find out later. They were looking at the wrong mountaintop. So we fly up, we land, and the pilot tells me I got a Dishka. Now, for those who don't know what a Dishka is, it is basically a Russian 50 caliber machine gun. I mean, it's a big thing. Imagine a big tripod. They shoot bullets that big. Is what the gun does. It's right there. And then a guy on the right side of the aircraft says, hey, I got a donkey over here underneath the tree. Literally, I say to myself, what's that jackass doing here, right? So there's a donkey there. And then there's a guy stands up on the left-hand side of the aircraft. So all of these things, right, are going through your mind saying, okay, my picture, right, was round, right? And now all these square pegs are coming at me and it's not fitting the picture. So I was like, what is something's not right here? But my orders are now to take the top of the mountain. So I tell the pilot, hey, we're going to go take the top. And that's at the time I hear the 3 words you never want to hear is RPG yelled from the left-hand side of the aircraft. That person that we had seen on the left-hand side of the aircraft bent over, picked up a rocket, and fired it right at our aircraft.
Right at the aircraft.
Yep.
And at that point, the night changed.
Yeah, everything changed at that point. So that's actually a picture. That's my aircraft. I have another distinction, I think, of being the only SEAL to get shot down twice in one night. Yeah, that's the first one. So the rocket hit just forward of the fuel tanks. You can see the impact right there, just on the left right there. We got really lucky. Had it been 12 inches to the right, that big bubble you see on the side of the aircraft is full of something that makes the aircraft fly, right? Which is very combustible. Mm-hmm. So we got really lucky. But the pilot and crew, they did an amazing job. I really can't give them enough credit. Instantly, a mountain erupts, more rockets are coming after us, bullets again the size of your finger passing through the aircraft. Pilot lifts up, makes an end run for the edge of the mountain to dive over it. It's about that when Neil slips and falls, gets ejected from the aircraft. So last thing I see of Neil is his legs going out the back of the aircraft just like this. So I instantly know that a guy he's out.
He's out.
He's gone.
And the helicopter is largely uncontrollable. The pilot, I think, probably did an amazing job to get it to some sort of controlled crash at this particular site, some maybe, 6 miles or so, 7 miles
Yeah.
from the top of the mountain?
Yeah, you can see
I think we have a view there.
that's it, looking back up the mountain, up the valley pass up to the mountain. But
So-
the pilot did an amazing job. You think, so the aircraft runs on fuel and hydraulics. Well, we took bullets from that gun, went right, imagine a school bus, again with the back door of the school bus open, and a 50 caliber machine gun shooting right down the ramp. Right, that's where the bullets were going, and that's what hit the hydraulic lines, and the aircraft basically bled out.
Wow.
So the crew chiefs, being as well trained as they are, realized it, and immediately in flight was servicing the aircraft by putting hydraulic fluid.
He's adding more hydraulic fluid in flight?
In flight, right? So he goes, and oh, by the way, that pilot, that crew chief, he got shot in the head too. He was right in front of me. So I didn't find this out until just late last year, right? So I'm still learning things about this mission. So the pilot, a guy by the name of Al, he says, oh, by the way, that crewman, he got shot in the head right in front of you,
Wow.
right? So he's standing in front of me, but I mean, he survived and gets up off the floor, hears that the aircraft's running out of hydraulic fluid, and grabs the extra stuff, puts it in the system, and gets us basically 3 minutes of flight time from 3 cans. The pilot is so concerned, because you can know this, any amount of input he puts into the controls squirts a lot of hydraulic fluid out, so he's very cautious. An amazing job of airmanship getting us to that spot.
Wow. So you land and you're here and you step out and you're trying to figure out where the heck you are, right?
Yep.
And how long did it figure out that's the mountain we got to go to way the heck over there? And was it light yet?
It wasn't light yet, still, certainly still dark. And, I initially thought that peak right there, you see it, but I thought that was it. Because I'm totally confused, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're Navy guys, right? We're
Right.
confused all
What are we doing on land?
What the hell
Yeah.
are we doing in land? Right? And some of you got that, right? So, yeah, we set up security around the aircraft, and my point man comes up to me and says, hey, that's not the mountain. It's that one way up the valley. So I need another helicopter to come and get us. And that's a big deal, right? Down helicopter, down crew.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, the world is erupting, because that's like $64 million sitting right there, right? So that's a big deal that thing's down. So I was like, I got to take care of that problem first, do a little triage of my problems, and then once I get that taken care of, now I can go focus on my friend.
This right here is where our stories start to intertwine, because as the platoon commander for the QRF, I was sitting in the Bagram Tactical Operations Center watching all of this happen, knowing that we would be called if needed. And our SEAL platoon, just like you said, a bunch of juveniles, they're playing poker and whatever back in the hut. And myself and our platoon chief, Chris Dye, who you know,
Yeah.
we saw and heard your helicopter do that maneuver, and Chris and I looked at each other and said, go get the guys. He ran and got the guys ready. I got a little bit of intel that we knew, and got the go to the helicopter.
This is all new to me, by the way. We didn't rehearse this.
We didn't rehearse this part.
We didn't rehearse any of this.
So I had my gear with me. We met Chris, the chief, got the guys, and we met at the ramp, and already the helicopters, the QRF helicopters are spinning up, which would have been like Razor 1 and 2, I guess, because you were with 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Razor 1 and 2 were spinning up. I got to the ramp, and it's, nighttime, loud, you can't see, you can't hear, and lean into the crew chief and said, are you the QRF helicopters? He said, yes. And so, come on, guys, get on board. And then he stopped me and said, are you the SEALs or the Rangers? I said, we're the SEALs. He said, you're in that helicopter over there. So we ran. We were on, we'll get to it in a second, but I had my boots on Razor whatever, 1, and we moved over to the other helicopter because the Rangers were your designated QRF.
Yeah.
So anyways, they now pick it up from there. What happens to that helicopter?
Blowing my mind, by the way.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Yeah, so there's Razor 1.
There's
right
Razor
there.
1. Let's see,
So
I got a little ahead of us, sorry. So
That's good. No, I'll pick it up.
pick it up from where you got
I
it.
got it. So when I get Razor 4 shows up. Call Razor 4, comes up, picks us up, flies us back to Gardez, which we had just left there a couple hours before, and get the air crew off, start getting the medical treatment. And now I can focus my attention back to Neil. And the radio's absolutely clogged. I can't hear anything. Everyone's talking to everyone, and I hear this little snippet of information that there's a strobe light, which a strobe light's a flashing infrared light on top of our helmets, right? That says, here we are. And so that's active. So that would have been Neil on the ground, but his helmet on. And that person with the strobe light's ambulatory, meaning he's walking, moving towards a tree. So I took that little snippet of information, which came across in maybe 10 seconds, that he's alive.
He's alive.
That was my proof of life. So try to paint a picture here for you. So I'm on my second helicopter of the night, and we'd have a habit of knocking the windows out of these things so that we could stick our guns out of them. So the air is whipping through there. It's about probably 30 degrees outside because it's cold. It's
Cold,
like
high altitude. Yeah.
bone chilling cold. And you can have anybody here ever smelled like you're getting on a plane and you smell the exhaust, the plane running? So that smell is whipping through the aircraft. It's right, and it's probably like 3 o'clock in the morning now, and wearing not much more than we are, like that stuff over there, and
Exactly that stuff, by the way, right?
yeah,
The stuff on the table.
those pants,
Those pants right there and the
pants on the table.
puffy black jacket.
yeah, and I feel the rivets because the aircraft's running. I feel the rivets vibrating on me, and I got my notebook in my hand, trying to figure out all my logistics of everything that I need, and I hear that information, trying to make the decision, right? Do I go now, right, with basically the 6 people? I had 7, Neil probably got 6, or do I wait for what would be the sure thing, like 2 aircraft loaded with Army Rangers, ready to go? There's nothing I'm not going to be able to do with that force. I think all of you would agree, right? 2 helicopters full of Army Rangers. Is there anything that force isn't going to be able to do? Yeah, of course not, right? So
Swim.
come on, lighten up. So that's my decision point, right? I could go now, right, or it could be a rescue,
Yeah.
right, or I can wait, and it's going to be a recovery, which is, I think you can figure out what right. One is he's walking out, otherwise I'm carrying him out, and it's an impossible decision to make, right? Because where are you stuck? Where are you stuck with this? So all of us that have served, we make those jokes, but at the end of the day, nothing matters other than the promise that we made to each other, right? I mean, those of you that have served here, right, nothing matters other than that promise we all made to each other. What sets our military apart from other militaries is we take an oath to an idea, not to any position, not to anyone in Congress, but to an idea. And at the end of the day, that's stronger than anything else, right? So, and the service to that idea and the service that we give to each other means, right, I'm going to come for you, no matter what, no matter where you are. I don't need to know your name. I don't know what branch of service. I don't need to know anything else other than you're in trouble. We're coming for you, right? All of you have served, you know that, right? Doesn't matter, right? So that conviction is heavy, right, in those moments, right? Knowing, right, it's going to cost more, right? Very high probability it's going to cost more to go now, right? Of course, what the sure thing is. And back to that picture, right? I'm sitting there, second helicopter night, making that decision, and back to what we started with, opening lines of the Boy Scout oath. On my own, I'll do my best to do my duty. I'm sitting there, the headset radio is absolutely clogged, people yelling, screaming on the radio, trying to sort through all this, right? Literally the math and the loads and everything, and that thought popped in my head. On my own, I'll do my best to do my duty. Something I learned when I was a kid, right? That I'm going to do the best that you possibly can in any situation. And I remember very clearly, had that notebook here, pen here, goggles on. I lifted my head up, looked out the back of the ramp. Green goggles, so night vision goggles have a green hue to them when you're looking through them. And I could remember seeing the exhaust from the helicopter off the engines back there distorting the view. And I thought for a second, and I was like, I'm going right now, right? I have the combat power, the means to make a difference at this moment in time, so I'm going to go, and that would be the best chance that Neil had, was to go now. And we didn't have the right equipment. Remember, we were outfitted for a reconnaissance mission, right? So not for an assault. So I don't have the right equipment to do what I'm doing. I'm almost out of fuel in this aircraft, so I'm fighting time. And just about everything else is against us. So made the decision we're going to go. Amazing thing for the pilot from the first aircraft that got shot down was standing right there. He said, I'm flying in. Think of this. So the guy just got shot down, right? And now he's like, nope, I'm going to fly it back in. And it's absolutely, I needed that because he's the only guy on this aircraft knows where we're going. So, I mean, you think of what that guy's going through. I asked him, I was like, hey, any place else for us to land? What do you think he says? Yeah, no. Yeah, we got to go to the same spot. I'm like, yeah, great.
Wow.
Yes, and we launched.
Man. And so you're flying back in for crash number 2, and you land, and were you able to, was it a controlled exit or was it a chaotic exit? I'm kind of getting a little ahead of you, but what was it like as you're deploying troops out of that helicopter?
Yeah.
Now you're on the top of the mountain.
You know, I know now. I know my guys are, I know they're scared. But I got to tell them what's going on. So I tell them we're going back. I give them everything I know. I'm giving them the why of what we're doing. I give them all that stuff, and I turn to them all and I tell them, I mean, this is a time, you got to stand up, and the line forms right here, right?
Oh, you're still on the ground at this point?
Yeah, we're still on the ground.
Gotcha. Okay.
Sorry. I'm just going to connect it all up here. So we're still on the ground. I just tell them, hey, eyes on me, focus on me, 100% of you here right now. This is what we're doing. We're going to go back. So we lift off, we go, and we land up there, taking heavy fire right away, because now everybody's awake. They know we're there, taking heavy fire. Ramp goes down. Headset comes off. I remember a pilot, right, telling me, team leader, good luck. Hang that up, put my helmet on. This way, I mean, it was really pretty controlled at this point, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we're getting shot at, but helmet on, strap up, I'm the first one off, right? Because that's the line, right? And first one off, and and then the games began.
Any evidence of Neil at that point, or did you know where he was relative to the ramp?
No.
No idea?
Had no idea. All we knew is we had a good idea where the trees were and some of the terrain. So the initial plan was to get on the ground, get in a group, and use that gunship flying overhead and its camera. It would tell us where the heat sources are, and then we'd go to the heat sources, right, and look for him. That part fell apart immediately because we were taken under heavy fire from everywhere. Hmm. We're out in the open. There's no cover and concealment out there. Pretty much right off the nose of that helicopter right there is where we were. And, so now, we're in deep in a big firefight. My CCT controller's killed immediately right next to me. Beginning of the fight, a belt-fed gun opens up in front of us. The bullets that struck him came from the same gun. You can see, if all you come up here, you can see the bullet holes in my pants that are over here on the table. Pass through my clothes and pass I didn't get hit at all, but it hit some of my other gear, and kills him instantly. He goes down. So we get in a big firefight with a bunker up on top and throwing grenades, going back and forth. I take, another couple of wounded and realize, we're up against a force of what ended up being somewhere around 40 enemy fighters up there. So we're running out of ammunition pretty quick and make the decision, I need a big gun, right? We're all down to our last magazines. We're out of grenades. What are we going to do? So I get everybody together and get us, you can kind of see a number 3 up there with a green triangle. There's a ledge to the edge of the mountain there. So I'm going to get my guys out of effective fire range, right? Because now we're just out in the open and people are literally putting their gun sights on us.
How much snow is there? Are you up to your thighs in snow?
Up to your thighs in there, so you're not moving too quick.
Not moving quick.
So I give the signal for that. I crawl over the top of John with no signs of life. John with my CCT, my Air Force controller, and get my guys together. I take another wounded at that point. So now I'm going down to 3 of us, and get out of effective fire anyway. So now they can't see us, but they kind of know where we are, and start calling in close air support, essentially on our position, was that gunship flying overhead, just to get their level of enemy fire down.
And this is about the time when the Rangers show up, right? If I've got the timing right?
Yeah, it's pretty close to there. The sun comes up at this point. It's daylight. The gunship.
You're over the edge. You're
over the edge of the mountain. That's the gun.
That's the Dishka.
We went back up a couple weeks later and took these pictures. Yeah, I'm over the edge of the mountain, so we're still exposed. Our big gun flies away, so that plan leaves. Call in the fast movers, right? Which somebody was helping send. I heard that story earlier. So the jets show up and they're dropping bombs really close to us, just to try to get the enemy's attention away from us. And then Razor 1, or was that helicopter there, the one that you stepped on, flies right up over the top of us. Literally, I can see the bottom of the rivets of the plane, of the aircraft, flies right over the top of us. And I remember my shooting partner standing next to me looking at us like, what in the hell are they doing here? Right? Because we just lost 2 aircraft here, and how is it possible that they do not know this? Right? And it's just...
And there's something called the fog of war, right? Like
This
that,
is it.
It's pervasive across a lot of units, and it exists in a micro level between a rock, and it exists at the big level in the whole Operation Anaconda, right? So I can understand how they didn't know. You're looking at, what the hell are you guys doing there? And so they land, and you see them fly right over, and they take some casualties.
Yeah, so a thing to remember here now is, as a nation, we were transitioning from a peacetime world, right, to a wartime world. And all the training we have done to that point was when? All for peacetime, right? Based on ideas we thought were sound. And then you hit the reality of it, and you're like, oh, this thing I've been doing for all these years, it's not right. We have to adapt, right? There's new rules to the game today. And the faster you adapt. So this is what we're doing as an entire force, is adapting from yesterday rules were one thing, today the rules have changed. So back then the rules were, my radio was on a different frequency than what that helicopter was on our train, right? Because the QRF was on a completely different
network,
back then, right? So by the time I realized that, I was like, he's not on what's supposed to be the Hilo common frequency. And then until I find my radio was right here, I was pointing, so until I find the right radio frequency, right, he's shot down. In the course of seconds, another rocket hits them, and that's Razor 1, and that was the first Ranger QRF there. So they're flying pairs, so the second one, which would have been the other helicopter with you there, I finally can talk to them and talk to that QRF and direct them where to safely land.
Where it's a little bit down the hill.
Which would have been where I was supposed to go, right, a full day earlier.
Yeah. And then, so as part of Operation Anaconda, they had forward area refueling points, FARP,
They did.
all over, several different ones. And the closest one to your area was called FARP Texaco.
Mexico, yeah.
And that's where the helicopter.
Gas station,
the
right?
gas station in the middle of nowhere. That's where our helicopter landed right about as the sun came up. And right after Razor 1 was shot down, that whole scenario you just described, I think some tough decision-making was happening back in Bagram. At what point do we keep sending helicopters to this area, and at what point do we not?
And that's what happened. Right, so it was probably what, 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning?
Early in the morning, yeah, something
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
Yeah, and we get the word that, I've got wounded. I mean, I've got bad wounded. There's bad wounded up on top, and we've got casualties also up on top. And then the word comes down to us like, we're not coming for you. You think through the logic of that, right? So I went back to get Neil. Rangers came to get us, and nobody's coming for all of us.
Because the sun is now up.
Because the sun's now up.
And so it's a long time until the sun goes down.
Yeah.
And did they give you that information? We're not coming because I remember sometime around lunch at FARP Texaco, the word came to us like, stand down, there's nobody going anywhere till the sun sets.
Yeah, they got us that information, and I remember being quite unhappy,
Yeah.
right? Quite unhappy.
I know your voice now, but I didn't know your voice then. But I probably heard your voice with that unhappy tone on the satellite comment frequency.
Can anyone imagine?
Yeah,
Yeah.
incredible. So were you stayed in during the cycle of daylight? Did you move?
I had to.
You had to.
I had to, because I was not in a defendable position. I had 2 severely wounded guys. I couldn't, even though it was a very short distance to the top of the mountain, right? And I couldn't get them up there. So I decided I'm going to descend down further, give up some tactical advantage, descend to a place that was really a little more defendable for us. So I bandaged the guys up, the 2 wounded up as best I could. One guy was ambulatory, he got shot through his legs, but he was ambulatory. He's the guy that black jacket over there, he was losing a lot of blood, but that black jacket over there is the one I wrapped him up in and to try to keep him warm. I've washed it since, so. And the other guy almost had his leg shot off, so I carried him for as long as I could and ended up dragging him the rest of the way. And had to get to a defendable spot because I don't know the situation, what's around us. I don't know for sure what's going up on top of the mountain. So I got to defend my team, and then I have to communicate out to where we are. So I found a defendable spot, someplace where the helicopters could come in and get us. Just tuck my guys, what I have left, up in the hills in the little cracks, and make it essentially a little Alamo.
Wow. And I don't want to miss any facts, but at what point did you know that there was inbound relief?
I really didn't, right? So one of the plans was to go down to. I knew down in the valley there'd be conventional units down there. Right?
You're getting this information over the radio, you're coordinating it?
I knew, like our radios are dead.
Yeah.
Like I have 0 radio. The batteries on them are
Batteries
gone,
went out.
right? So I have 0 communication with anyone. So no one knows where I am, and we're absolutely alone.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have to have a plan, right? I mean, there's still hope. You stop thinking. So I knew if I left my 2 wounded here with 1 guy for security for them, I could take a pair and I could walk the several miles it would take to get to friendly lines, tell them where we are. That was a plan for me. And then, as funny as it is, we had a satellite phone with us, and we kept trying to call our operations center, right, where we had launched from in Bagram.
Mm-hmm.
But someone had turned, like, for basically one satellite phone or cell phone to talk to the other phone, what condition do they need to be in?
On.
ON, right? OFF, right? I can't call that phone, so the phone in the operations center was off. Well, I mean, it's just you can't make this
Can't
stuff
make
up,
this
right?
stuff up. Yeah.
So, so the only other number I know is the quarterdeck at the command back in Virginia Beach. So we're in combat, right? And we dial the quarterdeck number and say, hey, this is me, we're in combat, go get the chief of staff. And that's how we ended up getting out of there, transmitted our coordinates.
Your coordinates to Virginia
home,
Beach,
to Virginia Beach.
who then got the coordinates to where they needed to get.
Pretty crazy.
Wow,
That's how we got out of there.
wow. And how much of the next night did you have to stay in the field?
There was a few hours into the cycle of darkness.
Yeah.
Because, they were assembling the whole group, right?
That's my recollection as well. We stayed there at FARP Texaco with the other elements of your command.
Yes.
And then all returned as soon as the sun set a couple hours later. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a crazy night.
Crazy night. Did you have continued operations during Anaconda, or did you guys kind of stand down for those next
Interesting.
couple days?
I mean, interesting enough, some of those pictures you saw, that's me up on the mountain a couple weeks later. But that was the enemy command and control center for their operations. So the battle really fell apart, right? But it's just amazing how we didn't know that was the enemy command and control center where all the radio, I don't know, right? But it was. So some organized resistance fell apart. But after Anaconda, we had several other missions immediately following after that. So yeah, we kept going.
Wow. And this is all 2002, early 2002. You stayed at the command until 2006, so you had many more deployments in those next few years, both back to Afghanistan and to Iraq, right?
Yes, yep. Back-to-back deployments and just kept going.
And you ultimately retired in 2014. At what point did you learn that your actions would be considered for the Medal of Honor?
So in 2016.
After retirement.
Oh, yeah, it was after retirement. I get a call to go back to the command, to go to an award ceremony, and hey, some of your friends are getting awards and they'd like you to be there. I say, oh, great. It's like going back home. So I get in there and, it's like the Secretary of the Navy is getting up on stage, right? And everyone's like, do we care about the Secretary of the Navy? And we're like, no, right? It's like,
Nope.
Chris and I, like, we're here having a conversation, right? Secretary of the Navy gets up on stage, we're like, whatever, right? And then all he said, the first words out of his mouth, where I just want to let everyone here know that I've just approved the Medal of Honor for Command Master Chief Britt Slabinski. And I was like, what? And then everyone, because I'm in the back, everyone turns and looks at me. I was like, yep, first I heard of it. Yeah, that's how I was notified.
Wow. And that was still a couple years before the award.
Yeah, and it's a pretty in-depth process to go through it all. But it was 2 years until that day right there, right? Going to the White House. Yeah.
Is there a lot of ceremonial things in the White House before those pictures?
Oh yeah. So we were in Washington D.C. I think a full week before that, doing all the office visits and seeing everybody, and oh yeah, it's a big pageantry, I guess you would call it, around it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible, Britt. I could sit here and talk all night long, but let's continue tomorrow.
We shall.
We shall.
Let's do that.
And so everybody, let's give it up for this story. Amazing. We've got some questions here, and I'll hand the microphone to Ed. So
Got a lot of great questions here, and sorry that we won't have time to get to all of them, but thanks to all of you for really fantastic submissions. So first of all, Britt, how far down the mountain did you have to descend with the wounded to get into a safe position?
All the way to the bottom and another kilometer further away. Yep. So it's like
Through deep snow, right?
like 10 football fields, right? Yeah, 10 football fields. Yeah, it was all pretty deep snow.
one more thing, we got a whole series of great photos here of the action and after the action. The question is, as part of the mission, is there someone responsible for taking pictures as we have seen tonight? Where did they come from, especially those shots of the helicopter?
So the shots of the helicopter came after the mission. That helicopter went back in service. So there was a team that went to the helicopter to basically ensure it wasn't pilfered or further destroyed, so that we could put it back in service, because it's a pretty expensive piece of gear. And they did, they put it back in service and kept flying it, right? To include Razor 4, which became a quite storied aircraft.
Which we tried to track down in the museum.
Yeah, it would have been great to get it in a museum, but.
It's a new exhibit. I'd imagine your tasks require adrenaline and more, mentally as well. What kept you going tour after tour, 13 times after this one?
It really became a task and purpose answer, I guess, or question. I think everyone in the military, your purpose for coming in the military is ultimately to protect the homeland and those ideals that you took a promise to support. And we were under attack, and I thought it was, my duty to fulfill that to its logical conclusion as best I possibly could, to basically end whatever we could do on our watch, right? And the task is, at the end of the day, right, we're war fighters, are we not? Yeah. Right? And that's what we were just designed to do, trained to do. So bring it on.
Great. And Chris, kind of the same question for you about what did you do mentally to persevere when other people didn't, to believe you could be an astronaut and a Navy SEAL?
When I applied to become an astronaut, I thought, this is a long shot and there's no freaking way they're going to pick me. But if they do, it's to be amazing. I'll get the chance to ride a rocket. But if they don't, I get to continue working with guys like Slab. And so for me, it was an easy proposition. I could lose in no way. And the answer, what kept me going, probably similar to Britt, is for the guy next to you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is, a question that builds off of that. I'll start first with you, Britt. I got like several questions along the same lines. Is that, what was it like to come home? And what was it like it was a while before you transitioned totally into civilian life, but say, coming back from combat deployment, first of all, what was that like? What was it like to return to the United States and then eventually to transition into civilian life?
Be completely honest with everyone here, I don't think you ever come home, right? I don't think you ever come home. That's part of the struggle, isn't it, right? To try to come home, because you're completely changed after an experience like that. You saw some pictures of the White House ceremony up there, right? I think. And, the one you just flashed. Can you go back to that other one real quick? Like that right there. Like, people ask me, okay, what are you thinking about right there? And I'm thinking, like, how uncomfortable of a position this is for me. It is absolutely uncomfortable for me to be here, right, wearing this, and receiving it that day, because 7 Americans died. There were 7 severely wounded. Everyone that fought there still stayed there. And who am I? Right? Who am I for this? So I think most of the recipients will tell you it is a very uncomfortable recognition to receive. So that's part of why the museum is so important, is to show, what the medal represents is love, right? Love for our teammates, to love to say, look, there's nothing that's going to get in the way of me coming to help you, to go and make it right. And it's just a very uncomfortable place to be. You want to hear something funny to lighten the mood? Yes. Okay, so at that moment right there, the aide was right next to the president, and you see him off there holding the medal, right? All through the ceremonies, they're holding the medal. And right before we walk in, the President and I walk in, the aide's there, right? He leans over to me, and like my mind's a mess, right? My mind's an absolute mess. He leans over to me, he's like, hey, be ready to catch it if he drops it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fast, but I'm not gonna be that fast. So until there's 3 clips on the back, that's 3 little snaps. Until I hear the first one go, my mind is like, be ready to catch it. Right? And then I hear the first one go, and I'm like, okay, you can't drop it now. Right? That's exactly the first thought. It's like, don't drop it. Yeah.
What's it like being part of the community of Medal of Honor recipients?
It's just absolutely humbling. You know, I mean, our we have a convention every year where we all get together, the recipients get the year. And the first one, which is not long after this ceremony, I walk in the room, there's like 40 of them in there, right? And I walk up, and my wife and I, we walk up to the door, right? Yeah, I'm wearing this, but I walk up and you look in there and you see 40 of those in a room, right? Anyone could be intimidated by that in a room, right? Yeah, right? So I'm looking at that, I'm like, I'm frozen at the door, like, what am I doing here? Right? I mean, I recognize some of these people, right? And we know their stories, right? And it's like, I got no business being here. So it was quite interesting. There was a gentleman that was in a wheelchair at the time, you know, saw me, locked eyes on me, got up out of his chair to the protest of his daughter, said, hey, no, he's like, he got up, come up to me, he's like, hey, welcome to the family, right? And just brought me in. Just some incredible humans, right? Yeah.
Have you had the opportunity yet to be that guy for a new recipient?
I've tried. Yeah, I've certainly have tried to do that, to welcome the younger guys that are coming in. You know, because it is life changing, right? And it is a heavy weight, right? So the design of the museum is accurate.
A couple of connected questions to wrap it up. Can you say something about the work that you and other Medal of Honor recipients do with veterans today, you know, and how you're looking to continue that?
Yeah, so we do 2 really good things at the society. I mean, we do a lot of good things, but one of them is our character development program, which we go into schools and teach kids about service and trying to do the right thing. And that has really been quite successful, and I think we're going to continue that on here at the museum. And the other one is just being an advocate for veterans, right? And tell them, hey, look, when you look at this medal, you need to see that 100 other people that were around you that day, right? And they are much larger than that. Those are some of the stories that we will continue to tell. And really, the hope for me anyway, is at the end of the day, that a Medal of Honor recipient is an endangered species, right? Ideally, we get to the point where there are no more living recipients, right? We don't want to make them, because that implies why, right? We haven't defeated that piece of our human nature, right? That wants to go out and destroy each other, you know? And unfortunately, given the status of the world, I think we got more coming.
So final question, and this comes from the audience, and on a tough subject. We have an epidemic now of veteran suicides.
We do.
And this for both of you, really. Any comments on that, but also, I think, to expand on that, thoughts you have for families of veterans who are going through tough times, you know, of how they can be a support and how others in communities and families can be a support to veterans?
I think, you know, with the nature, the thought being that some people never really come home, right? A piece of them is always there, a piece of their mind is always turning on past actions and past things and past deeds, past friends. Maybe the mindset that they're in, I mean, who knows what they're thinking when they go through that moment, right? They're thinking at that moment like that is a viable option for them, right? So clearly they're not thinking clearly through that stuff. I think the big thing is always just communicate to them, this is a human thing. This life that we're going through, right? We can't forget to be human in our daily interactions. We get to be very sterile with, all this Facebook stuff, or, right, there's been many layers in between us and trying to be human. You can break all that stuff down and always remember to your loved ones, be ready with a hug, be ready with an I love you, be ready to lock eyes contact with them, and let them know, look, I know you're hurting. You don't have to tell me you're hurting, but let's go, right? It's okay, right? This is terrible stuff, and let's go through it together. So that's why I would just tell them, you're not alone here. Your fellow veterans, all of them, they all feel the same way. Maybe they're not letting it out, but let's go make it right. What do you think?
Britt, we seriously appreciate your time being here tonight. What a treat it was for me and for all of us here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, man.